So if we turn the lights up a little bit, we get some people who might want to ask some questions from the audience. And who out there has a question you'd like to go ahead?
What would you say is some good advice for preventing a premature launch of a startup company?
So the question I'll repeat is, what's some good advice to know when the right timing is to launch a startup company? Great question. Actually, something that a lot of people don't think to ask. So I think if you're asking yourself that question, that's actually the first step. It's obviously very situation dependent on what's the right thing to do. But startups and businesses go through phases, and the first phase is really kind of developing the idea and kind of searching for an idea, searching for a kind of a business. The next is really searching for the ability to repeat that business and to get it stable. And then the last is really how do you scale it and grow. If you feel like you're ready for that first step, and you're really just looking for an idea, that's where you start. At some point, I guess maybe another way to answer the question is, one thing that happened to me, over time, every time I would start a company, is people would come say, "Wow, that's such a big risk you're taking. I'm so impressed. It's so brave." And it never really made any sense to me because, unless you're building a factory or you're doing something that's very capital intensive, most of the time, it's really not that much of a risk. And so when the risk comes is once you start to get a little bit more successful or at all successful, or you need to start making decisions like, we're going to rent an office. I need to personally guarantee that office space, and I need to take from my own savings to hire an employee. Those are big risks, and those are the things where you really want to make sure that you've done your homework and that you have some sense that it's gonna pay off. Before that, I say, it's just a question of really gradation as to whether you've started the business or not. You register a domain name, get some friends, start banging out prototypes. That stuff is free, and you should be always doing that. And then once you're at the point where you really have decisions to make that are going to have impact and lasting impact and potential negative consequences, that's when you have to start to realize, should I, is this going to work, and can I afford to fail?
So there's time for 2 more questions. How about up here? Go ahead, sir.
How do you know when you have a good idea compared to a bad idea? They both come around.
Is there an easier question? No. I mean, that comes down to judgment, really. I mean, I don't think you can establish ahead of time, independent of your own personal capabilities and context and ability to execute, what is a good idea. A lot of the most successful companies that we know of had ideas that at the time, they didn't sound so great, or weren't particularly interesting. Sugar water doesn't sound like a particularly interesting idea, but I'd love to have Coca-Cola, if I owned it. So it's hard to say ahead of time, that I can give you, 3 bullet points as to what a good idea is. I mean, I have my own, to try to be a little bit more helpful. When I'm looking to invest in a company as opposed to an idea, there's some specific things that I'll look at. So I want to know, is this a sizable enough market that there's the potential to have, a meaningful payoff? Is this product a good solution within that market problem? And is this a team that I believe in? Are these people the right kind of people for this company? So certainly once you get away from the idea and more into a company, there's lots of things that one can do, such as those 3 that I just mentioned, to look at whether this is a good company or a good investment or opportunity.
Great. Let's take 1 more question. Go ahead, right there. Yeah, in the hat. Yeah.
You mentioned kind of failing with Goldman. Who was your first big client, and what do you think led to that first big successful effort?
Right. Okay, good question. So the question is, I mentioned a failure, and I've been throwing a softball here. Is like, how did you get your first big client, and how did that go? Which is a great way to end this call, because I feel like I've been bearing all my dirty laundry this whole time. So, when we started Lab 49, we had a very early insight that we were fortunate to make, which was that at the time, as a very small company, again, as I mentioned, it was 3 of us around my kitchen table. We opened up our laptops, and there are big consulting companies all over the world. But there was new technology coming out that we were fortunate to have used during the alpha phase, in other words, the pre-release phase. And so once it was released commercially, we had as much experience at this as anyone in the world. This is Microsoft.NET, for those of you that are wondering. And this was in 2002, and I had been using the technology since early 2001. And so when it came out, we were able to credibly say to a global bank that we have as much experience in Microsoft.NET programming as anyone in the world, and that's why you should hire us to build your bond trading system, having never been on a trading floor, didn't know what a bond was, didn't know anything about trading systems, right? But we had this core, kind of differentiator. And that was a huge aha moment to us, because we realized technology is changing faster and faster all the time. It's having a huge impact on every business. And if you can develop a capability around understanding new technologies as they come out, that's a race that you can constantly win. You can kind of surf that, forever. It's not that we thought Microsoft.NET is our ticket to success. We thought our ability to stay on top of innovation is our ticket to success. And so, that early capability really enabled us to get into some projects that, at big clients that otherwise we weren't able to. And that one project that I'm talking about ultimately became our biggest client for 6 or 7 years. They were over half our business. So that was certainly, meaningful to us.